I'm going to talk a bit about browser APIs today. Does anybody of you have any idea what I mean with browser APIs? Any example of an API that might be interesting to talk about? None. One in the back? The history API. That's a cool one, but I'm not going to talk about that one. I'm going a bit more exotic. We'll see a few of these APIs which you might not know exist in a browser because they're not that well known. But first, let me introduce myself. My name is Bellen. I'm from Belgium. I am a software engineer at a company called madewithlove. I am one of the co-organizers of Frontiers, which you might know from the conference in Holland, but we also have meetups in Belgium. You can find me online as Sambego. And I like cats. Are there any other cat lovers in this audience? Are there cat haters in this audience? Go! Nah, you can stay. You can say it might be interesting for you as well. And maybe I can convert you into loving cats by the end of this talk. This is my cat, and she will be visible throughout this presentation, and she will try to teach you a bit about the web browsers and the cool stuff they can do. The first API is a speech API. Does anybody, of how many of you know that a browser can talk? A few? Nice. So,
Hi, International JavaScript Conference. Did you know the browser could talk? Cool, huh? The web speech API converts text to spoken words. You can even choose my voice. Since I'm a female cat, I'll be talking with a female voice. Meow.
So let's do a vote. Who should continue the presentation? Me or my cat? Cat? Too bad, it's going to be me. You have to deal with it. But yeah, a browser can talk, which is really cool. You can use it in a lot of creative ways, like making a basic screen reader or just using it in a game so your characters can talk to you, or using some promotion, cool, fancy website. But it's actually not that difficult to make your browser talk. Modern browsers have implemented this speech API, and we're going to use this to make your browser talk. The first thing you need is the speech synthesizer. You can find this under the window object. I cache it under syn because I'm lazy and syn is a little bit shorter to type, but yeah, it's on your window. Once you know where to find this synthesizer, you have to create a speech synthesis utterance, which is a very difficult word for just an object which contains the text you want the browser to speak. It contains some characteristics as well of how the browser should talk, but we'll see about that later. So, yeah. You create a new instance of this, and you just say, hi, everybody. And then the last thing we have to do is just give this utterance to your synthesizer and say, speak. Now,
hi, everybody.
Easy as that. Now, you might have noticed that in my first example, my cat was a female cat, and this was a low male voice, which is a default in Chrome. But I've mentioned that this utterance also contains some characteristics of how the browser should talk. You can, for example, choose a voice, set the pitch or the rate of your voice, and stuff like this. So yeah, you can get a list of voices from your synth object. I chose Fiona. There's a lot of voices. Some are better for English, some are better for Spanish, French, German. I think there's a German one, I'm not sure. So yeah. Then my cat is a small animal, so I increase the pitch, and it's a very lazy animal, so I decrease the rate so it talks a bit slower. And once you've done this...
Now, this is better, don't you think?
Sounds much more like a cat if a cat could talk English. So let's recap how to use the first API. Does it all fit? It just fits. You use the speech synthesis you find on your window, create a new utterance, choose a voice if you want, set the rate or the pitch if you want, and then just say syn.speak, and it's good to go. The second one, the browser can also do speech recognition. Have anybody already played with this before? Cool. Now, when I say the browser can do this, I mean Google Chrome, because the others have not yet implemented. Firefox has a flag for it, but it doesn't really do anything. It just has a flag. So when I am going to press this button, hopefully it will start listening to what I'm saying and is going to transcribe what I'm saying. Hi, everybody. Failed demos are always cool. Let's try to refresh. Hi, everybody. Voila. It's just understood that I said hi, everybody. I could have said something super complicated, but hi, everybody is good enough to demonstrate this. And this works pretty well. If you have an accent, it might work a bit less. If you talk very fast, it might work a bit less. But if you talk a decent English, the browser is quite capable. Chrome is quite capable of understanding you. It does also tell you how sure it is of that what it understood is right. So it gives you a percentage of, I'm quite confident that my results are okay, or I'm quite confident that my results are bad. So let's see how to use this. Does my mic still work? Kinda. Okay. It is important to know, though, that to use this API, you need some internet access because it doesn't really work in the browser. It's just an API which is exposed in your browser, but when you talk, you're going to send your voice or the audio you produce to Google servers. They're going to do the magic, send you some text back. So that's why you need some internet access. So the first thing you need is a speech recognition instance, like this. And you can configure some parameters like we're going to talk English, I don't want intermediate results, and what to do when you get a result back or what to do when you get an error back. And that's about everything you need to do to make your browser listen to you, understand you, and have fun with it. You can do all kinds of stuff with this, like, for example, create your own personal assistant in the browser, somebody who listens to you and responds to what you say. That's an example. Does anybody has another idea what to do with this API? Anybody? Exactly. Yeah, that's a very good point because not everybody is as capable of typing due to some symptoms or whatever. So they can try to talk to the browser and give commands, and your website can respond to those commands. The next one is the geolocation API. I think you're all very familiar with this because nowadays every website is going to ask you like, can I know where you are? Can I get your location? It's annoying. But it can also be very useful in some cases. So at the moment, let's try to figure out that I'm in Munich. That's correct. And we are more or less here. We're actually in the Holiday Inn a bit to the left of this, but it's in the neighborhood. And this is just done in the browser. The browser can ask for your location, and you can do stuff with that. You can get your current position with using the geolocation.currentPosition method, but it returns some coordinates. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I'm very bad with coordinates, a longitude and a longitude. Latitude and longitude doesn't really say anything to me. So yeah, you can see you get some coordinates back. So you can use some service like the Google Maps API to convert those coordinates to something readable. Don't have to read this, it's in the docs of Google Maps API. But this will just return your locality of the coordinates where you are at the moment, Munich in our example. You can also use Google Maps to show a map. And it looks like my cat has figured out that you can send notifications on the web. So the next API will be the notifications API. Now, you might have seen them come in. These are somebody mentioning me on Twitter, and some notifications my cat just sent me. They're native notifications, but sent from a website, which is really cool. So yeah, let's see how we can make a notification appear on the user's screen. It's quite easy. The first thing you have to do is ask for permission, because the user has to give you permission to send these notifications. Otherwise, you could just spam the user with constant notifications, which would be annoying. So once you get a permission and the permission is granted, you can create a new instance of a notification and just say what you want the notification to tell. So the title, a body text, and an icon. There's some few others, but these are the most important ones. And it creates a notification like this. Now you can also add a click event handler to this notification. When a user clicks on your notification, you can run a function or do something, listen to it. You do this by just using an onClick event handler on your notification instance. Now, I've talked about notifications, but of course, these days we all have push notifications. Is there somebody who can explain the difference between a regular notification and a push notification? I will do that then. That's why I'm on this stage, I guess. So a regular notification is just created by the front end of your website in the JavaScript code and just shown whenever the front end says, show me notification. A push notification is a notification that gets sent from a push server to the front end to the user. So it's something that gets triggered in the front end, but is sent from a server. So this can happen anytime. The front end doesn't really know when, but when it happens, it will show it. Now they look exactly the same. When I click this button, a request went to a server which sent the push events back to me, and I showed a notification. But the cool thing about this is I don't really need to have my window open. I can just send a request, and while I just close my window, the notification just came in. So you don't need to be on the actual website to receive these push events and to show them, which is kind of cool. I want my presentation back. So yep. So this is the good part of having push notifications. Is a bit more work, but they can appear at any time as long as you've had the permission to send them. So let's see how you can create them. To listen for push events, you have to use a service worker, like so. A service worker is just a separate worker which runs on a separate thread and which can listen for push notifications or can intercept network requests and stuff like this. So we just register a new service worker, like so. It's just a separate JavaScript file, and then when the promise resolves, we just get access to the push messenger, and then we get a subscription, which will basically just return an ID, and that ID we can use to identify this user on our push server. So whenever something has to be pushed to this user, we use that ID. And then once you've registered your user on your push server, you just do an add event listener for a push event. And then every time a push event comes in, you just do whatever you want. In this instance, we just do self.registration.show notification and give a title and a body. Now, these are hard-coded, title and body. You can, of course, just send them with your push message. I was a bit lazy, and for this demo, I forgot to do that. But yeah, this is what you have to do to create push messages. It's a bit more complicated than just create a notification instance, but there are a lot of benefits to this. The next one is the Battery Manager API. Who of you knew that your browser could know stuff about your battery? A few. This is actually, once upon a time, Firefox had this thing called Firefox OS, which was a mobile operating system written in JavaScript, or where you could use JavaScript to write apps. So back in the day, they invented a lot of APIs. This is one of them. But other browsers started using them or started implementing them as well. And now you can just go into your Chrome or your Firefox. Firefox not anymore, actually, because they removed this due to some privacy concerns. Also, Safari removed it, but Opera and Chrome still implement it. And yeah, you can get a lot of information about your battery, like my level is 89%, it's charging, and then if you look up top, it's 89% and it's charging. Now, if I am going to unplug my power cord, it is supposed to go to the next slide, but my demos today are very nice to me. So let's plug it back in. Now you can, it doesn't do anything, but you can listen to changes in the status of your battery or the status of your charging, if you're charging or not, and then respond to those changes. And if all goes well, it should work, but it does not do this at the moment, so let's just continue. Blah, blah, blah. So what you need to do to work with the Battery Manager API, the first thing you need to do is ask get battery from your navigator, and it will return a battery object, which will contain the percentage of your battery, how much it is charged, if it is charging or not, how long it will take to charge and decharge. Decharge, is that a word? No, doesn't matter. This information, so you can just display this information and do something with it. But I told you that you can also listen for changes in this information, which, if all goes well, should trigger an event. So you can respond to those changes. So you can listen for a change in level or charge or charging time or discharging time. That was the word. So does anybody know a good example of why or when you can use this API? Anybody has any idea? Yeah. Maybe, yeah, you can reduce the server, so you use less server communication, so you use less battery. You can also imagine that you're filling in a very long form without autosave, and your battery is about to die. You could just notify the user, like, you might want to save or plug in your power because your battery is about to die, and otherwise you lose all the data in this very long form or in this Google Docs, even though it saves automatically. But those are a few, this is another example you can use this with. The next one is the Media Recorder API. Has anybody ever played with this one? It's a really fun one. Basically, you can record media in your browser. You don't need anything else but your browser. And with media, I mean video or audio. So let's try. Hi, everybody. Let's try. Hi, everybody. I just recorded a little video of myself in the browser with the Media Recorder API and get user media, of course, because I needed to have my camera and my microphone data. So the first thing you need to do is ask the user for some for access to the microphone or to the webcam. Once you get that, I do it like this: navigator.mediadevices.getUserMedia. This used to be under just Navigator, but nowadays it's under Media Devices, and it returns a promise instead of working with callbacks. You can say I want video and or I want audio, and once this resolves, you get a stream of your video and or audio. So now that we have a stream of our webcam, we can just use a HTML5 video element and set the source object to stream. This is just to preview your webcam, so you know what you're doing, you see what you're doing. But if you want to record it, we are going to use a new Media Recorder instance. Like so, you create a new Media Recorder instance and just pass along the stream we got from the getUserMedia before that. Then you add some event handlers, like what to do when there's data available, what to do when you stop recording, and you just say, start recording. Now, when this is going to trigger this onDataAvailable event quite a few times, every X milliseconds, I think. So every time this event handler runs, it's just going to save a chunk of your video in an array, which we'll use later. So when we stop, we take this array of chunks and just basically glue it all together, save it as a base64, and give it to a video element as a source. This is a bit of a hacky way because you have to use blob, which is not hacky, but then you create a base64 string encoded URL, and then you give that as the source of a video element. So you cannot really save it to the computer yet, but you can really preview it like this, which is nice. I like to play around with this. Then the Web Audio API, which is my favorite API in the whole browser. Is there anybody else in this room who really loves this or has played with the Web Audio API? We can be friends. Nice. I am not going to talk too much about this, otherwise you would be here tomorrow morning. But if you want to know more after this presentation, feel free to just come and talk to me. So a browser can not only just play MP3 files or whatever, it can also create audio. Very impressive note. But you can do stuff like this, which is already a bit nicer. It's a scale from C to C or Do to Do. Or you can compose your own audio, which is, I think, is impressive because it's a browser. And this is not playing MP3 files or WAV files or MIDI files. It's really creating the audio from zero in your browser. So yeah, little joke. So how do you do this? The first thing you need is an instance of an audio context. And this audio context is basically the thing that will allow you to do anything with the Web Audio API. You can create new audio nodes with this. You can connect your audio nodes to your speakers, stuff like this. The thing we used in this example is an oscillator. An oscillator is just something that is going to create a tone, like the first example, or like all the notes you hear in the other examples are all just tones played after each other. So you do audio context.create oscillator. Then you say, I want this oscillator to have a frequency of 440, which is, I think, a C. You say a sine. I want it to be a sine wave. You have a few different waves, like a sine wave, a triangle wave, a square wave, a sawtooth wave, stuff like this, and they will sound a bit different. A sine wave is a nice even sound, like a square wave is going to be a little bit dirtier. Is also cool. So once you've created your oscillator, you're not going to hear your audio immediately, because you have to connect your oscillator to the destination of your audio context. By doing this, you basically say, I want the output of this oscillator, this fixed tone, and I want to connect it to the speakers, because the destination of your audio context is your speakers or the output device of your device, of your laptop. Most cases, the speakers or your headphones, whatever. Now, it is important to know that the audio context has a built-in clock. You might be able to use just set timeout or set interval, but this has some drawbacks. Imagine that you're going to play a song where every note has to be at the exact right time, and your website is starting to do a lot of fetch requests or XML HTTP requests, and a lot of async stuff is starting to happen. Your intervals are going to be a bit later because your event loop is busy doing other stuff. That's why the audio context runs on a separate thread and has its own clock, which you can use to get exact, precise timings for your audio. You can find it under your audio context.currentTime, and using this, you can start scheduling notes. Like you can say, I want my oscillator to start now, and I want it to stop at exactly 2 seconds from now, and so on and so on. You just keep on starting and stopping an oscillator or doing other stuff to create or compose a song. Altogether, you create your audio context, you create an oscillator, set some values, connect your oscillator to your destination, and you have a tone. I really like this. I hope that some of you might be like, oh, it's cool, you can do cool stuff in the browser. I want to play with this. You should definitely do this. Yeah. Then the vibration API. Don't know why a browser would want to vibrate your phone, but it can do this. And you can do it on a mobile device, but not on my laptop, of course, because it doesn't have a vibration motor. So if you ever want to try this out, you can go to this URL, and it should vibrate. I will share this later as well. But it's actually quite easy to make your browser vibrate. You just do navigator.vibrate, and then just say, I want you to vibrate for 400 milliseconds. That's it. So if you want to send a notification to your user, and you want to make it extra apparent that you have sent a notification, just make the device vibrate. You can also vibrate in a pattern, like 400 milliseconds of vibrating, 200 of nothing, 400 of vibrating. And like this, you can create patterns like SOS or SMS, like it used to vibrate on these old Nokia phones, I think. So yeah, it's really just that easy to vibrate your phone from the web browser in a pattern. It's amazing how easy it is to be a web developer if everything works. It doesn't work, it never works. But if it works, it's nice. The next one is device orientation. You can respond to the orientation of your device. If your device has an accelerometer, like my phone, it has an accelerometer, so it can get some events like, am I holding it like this or like this, doesn't matter what. And I would demo this, but my laptop doesn't have it. And you used to be able to just connect your phone to your laptop and preview it through QuickTime, which doesn't work since iOS 11, so I have a little video of it. Imagine me having my phone, and I would tilt it like this, and the mouse would go to there, and then to the bottom, and so on and so on. You can create very simple games with just your browser. You can really respond to the way you're holding your device. Like this, get the mouse to the cat game. So how does this work? You can listen for device orientation events. That's basically what you need to know to listen to the changes in how you are holding your phone. You listen for these events trigger, and they give you some information like alpha, beta, and gamma, I think, which you just really have to play around with, because you will see the alpha changing if you tilt your phone some way, or the beta changing in another way if you tilt your phone. Yeah, it will just give you this information, and this is just a number on how much you've tilted your phone one way or the other. I must say that not every browser implemented this the same, so an alpha might be different in a Chrome than in a Firefox. Of course, it's the internet, it's a web, but there's a nice library for this, so it will normalize this data, and you can use it anyway. The next one is the Media Sessions API. Has anybody ever heard of this one? It's a bit more exotic because it only works in Chrome on Android, but I don't know if you guys ever noticed, are there any Android users in this room? Okay. If you go to a website and you play an audio or a video element, it shows you something like this in your notification tray. It just shows you that this website is playing some audio or video, a play or pause button, and then it is just a file icon or an icon of your website. This is automatically, you don't really have to do anything in Chrome on Android. But it would be nice if you could customize this a bit, because which song am I playing on this website or which video you don't really know. Well, it might be nice to show your user this information. That's when the Media Session API steps in. You can get something like this, something with the title, the artist, even the CD, and you can even configure some buttons to go back and forth and play and pause and stuff like this. Configure in an image as well. And you do this like this. Once your media starts playing, you just say, navigator.media session, this is the metadata I want you to show, the title, artist, album, an array of artwork if you want to support multiple screen dimensions. And that's going to make sure that you see this metadata when playing this media file on your website. Now, you could also just register some more buttons. Like this, you just set an action handler for the pause button, and then when the user clicks on that pause button in this notification tray, you can do something. You can do this for the play and a lot of other buttons, so you can really just define the behavior of what your website is going to do when the user clicks one of these buttons, which is really cool if you're doing some media-related stuff. Next one is the Web Share API. You know that all these websites used to have this Facebook like button and Twitter tweet button, which is okay. But mobile apps these days have this share trays which come up when you want to share something. Now, it's also possible to do this on Chrome on Android only. So you can just get this tray on Chrome or Android and share your website, your current page, with the apps you've got installed. Like so. when the user clicks a button, for example, you just do navigator.share, give some information, and this will just trigger the native notification tray instead of opening a pop-up or a new window where you have to post it to Facebook or Twitter. So it's a bit more integrated with your mobile operating system, which is always a bit nicer. The next one is offline. Has anybody ever tried playing with a website offline? Okay, a few. You might think that websites are on the internet, which you need an internet connection for, which is true, but nowadays we have the service worker, like I said earlier, which can intercept network requests, but it can also cache data. So when the user comes to your website, you can start caching this data, and then when it requests this data again, you can just serve it from cache, refresh it, and put it again in the cache. But if the user doesn't have a network request, you can just serve this cache data as well. I'm not going to show you in detail how to do this because it's quite a bit of code, but we can demo this. I have a window here which is going to my website, which is online. Then if I turn off my Wi-Fi, remind me to turn it back on later, otherwise my demos will stop working again. Now if I refresh, it will just continue to work. I can advance. This is the presentation, but it's a website. I can advance because everything is cached. Now, should I go to a page that has not been cached, we can still tell the user, like, it looks like you're offline. Please reconnect to the internet before using this website. But you can show some nice visual or some nice message to users so that it's aware that you're offline instead of just giving you the dinosaur in Chrome, or it's also in Firefox these days, a dinosaur, the 404 page, the default 404 page, or no internet connection page of your browser. So yeah. Your websites can work offline. You just have to be a bit creative with your service workers, but there are some nice service worker libraries these days which make it really easy for you to do all this complicated stuff like caching and intercepting requests and listening for push events and stuff like this. That's why I'm not going to show you some code. But what else is in the browser? A payments API. Also, Chrome has started to implement a payments API, which makes it easier and safer for you to just pay on the web. It will trigger a native payments dialog, let's say, and lets you just pay on the web in a better way. The Web Bluetooth API, you can connect to devices with just Bluetooth and just send messages back and forth between your website and a Bluetooth device. The Web USB API, you can just connect a USB device and then again just talk to it, send messages back and forth. These are new APIs which are not really widely implemented, but they have started to implement this, and you can do this in Chrome already. And I think that's one of the directions that the web is going. It's going to be with just a website to a much broader thing that you can really use it almost as an operating system, because you can listen to hardware, you can talk to hardware, you can control hardware, you can do a lot of crazy stuff. So I'm very curious to see what the future holds. I have no idea. We'll see about that. But let's throw everything together, because these APIs are very cool, single, but when you throw them all together, you can get some even funnier results. So I've mentioned earlier that you can make a personal assistant, for example, with this web speech recognition API. So I did just this. I created my own personal assistant, which is called Poes, which, if you speak German, I think it's the same as in Dutch. It means cat. I'm that creative with names. But it knows a few tricks. So if we type help.
These are the tricks I got up my sleeve.
Did I reconnect my internet? Okay. So first thing, let's not type this. We're going to ask it to remind us in 1 minute to do something very important. So hopefully in 1 minute we get a notification telling us to do something very important. But you can also just ask, what's the weather? And then this will fetch my location. Then based on my location,
Looks like mist with a temperature of 13.12 degrees Celsius.
it's going to fetch the weather based on my location. So this is really using the web speech recognition API to understand my command, then use my location to the geolocation API to get my location, use that location to get some weather, and then it's going to use the speech API to talk back to me. You can also get, I forgot.
These are the tricks I got up my sleeve.
Something with news.
Here is some fresh
You can
news
just
for you.
ask the assistant for news, but we can do some more stuff like, let's do something fun. Oh,
Hey, look,
there's,
now you're a cat as
there is
well.
the reminder from a minute ago, but we can also just do stuff like this. You have these Snapchat and Instagram stuff, apps, which are very popular at the moment, and they have these face filters. So why not just make it on the web? We have access to our microphone or video or webcam at this in this example. So why not just do some face recognition on it and just put some ears on your own face? It's not as smooth as the real apps, but I don't have a big company backing me, so this is what I made. Yeah, you get it. You can,
Here is your battery
get your battery
information.
status and stuff like this. So using all these APIs together, you can really create some fun and creative experiments like a personal assistant. Yeah, I think that's about all the tricks it has. So, are there any questions? Because I've talked about a lot of APIs and I've gone through them quickly, so I'm not sure if I explained them all very well or if you have more questions about them. So, are there any questions? Yep. Yeah. Yeah, I didn't really mention this, but most of these APIs, like location or notifications or your webcam audio, they ask for permission to the users first. And if you don't accept this, they're not going to work because you need permission from users to access these APIs. Sometimes you have to do it explicitly, like with the notification API, but to access your webcam or audio, it's going to happen automatically. It will just show a prompt. You didn't see my browser ask me for these permissions because I've been on this website before and I've granted them permission before, so it remembered this. If you're on HTTPS, most of these APIs only work over HTTPS as well, because you should all be on HTTPS by now. So yeah, any more questions? Yep. It's on GitHub, but this presentation is kind of hacked together. But if you go to my GitHub, there's a project called Meow, and the whole presentation is in this. I will maybe show you that you can go to this link as well, and the presentation is there as well if you want to search or recap or see the examples or play around with them. They don't work in every browser. The presentation is going to warn you. Might not warn you because sometimes things don't work. But if you use Chrome, they should all work because Chrome has the best support for all these fancy APIs. Yep. Any more questions? You guys should ask a lot of questions. Okay. Well, I guess we're done then. Thank you.